The year is 2019. May 19th, 20th, if you're in Australia. And the whole world is waiting for the final episode of a little show called Game of Thrones. If you have been watching this show from when it first aired in 2011, it has been 8 years. Even longer if you read the books. It is an end of an era. Now, 78 minutes later, you're staring at the screen as the credits start to roll.
You have a lot of feelings, maybe a lot of words, maybe no words at all. But how do you sum up how you feel? I'll tell you how you can. Colour. Now I want you all to think about what that fateful day of May 19th made you feel and really picture that colour in your mind. And now if I can have some hands up of anyone who'd like to share their colour.
Red.
Anyone else?
Blue.
We've got blue over here. Blue as well? Blue? Anyone else? And the black?
Let's go green.
And a green. As you can see, everyone here had many different colours and it meant something to us. And that's what Vybe is here to help you with. Vybe will be combining 3 universal languages: music, colour, and maths.
Did you know that 574 million people use Spotify? That's more people using Spotify than watching Netflix. Colours can impact us greatly. Like some people might actually feel warmer looking at a colour that has a warm tone. Colour interpretation can actually be shaped by someone's background or their cultural influence. We know that everyone sees colours differently and interprets colour in a different way. So Vybe is here to convert your own interpretation of colour to music. This is our agenda for today. We'll be asking who is Vybe, what is Vybe, how is Vybe, why is Vybe, and we'll be having a live demonstration and a Q&A at the end. I'm Hewson, and standing with me is Chelsea and Alicia. Early on, we decided that we really wanted to do a full stack development. We wanted the opportunity to learn and experience as much as possible. This simplified our development process, whilst also giving us a broad understanding across the website. As Adrian said to us many times, we may not understand how, but as long as we know what to do, we can learn. On top of that, to hold each other accountable, we assigned each other lead positions. So me, I'm the project lead, managing the development of the website. With Chelsea having the most design experience, she led the stylistic choices and the UI. And as the one with the most opinions, Alicia is the product lead. I want to ask you this one time. What is Vybe?
UrbanDictionary.com defines Vybe as noun, a distinctive, emotional atmosphere sensed intuitively. I think we can all agree on that. 3,174 thumbs up. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. So let's go back to the beginning. Like all great ideas, ours started off as kind of a joke. Something like, wouldn't it be funny if we matched K-pop bands to a user depending on the music they were already listening to? And from there, it has evolved into what we now call Vybe. At this point, we're fairly confident we understood what our website would do, what it could potentially do, and what we would need to make it work. But we did not know how, where, what to start. Enter user stories. Full disclosure, we did not follow the Agile methodology in the way it's perhaps more commonly used in a professional setting. But in the spirit of Agile, we made it work for us. User stories helped us approach our website from the perspective of the user and really examine the purpose of each feature. As a user, I want to be able to log in with my Spotify account because I don't want to make another account. Combined with Moscow, we were able to identify, agree on, and prioritize on what we thought we could deliver as an MVP. We took all of that and used it to plot out iterations and sprints, which was mainly holding ourselves accountable to deadlines. If we couldn't get something to work in the agreed timeframe, we would drop it and move on to something else. With the iterations, we started on the most basic functionality. We limited user choices and hard-coded everything. And the idea was with every iteration, we would upgrade one element until we replaced all the hard code. It was optimistic, and we didn't quite follow it, but that's okay, it was just a guide. Now things get more fun. Wireframing is a 2D representation of your interface, and it gives you the opportunity to visualize your website for the first time with your team. Now you get to actually see how everything should flow, the intended behavior, how many pages you'll need, what gets called where. Yes, this has been discussed many times at this point, but now you get to see it. We went with mobile first responsive design because 97% of Australians own at least one smartphone. And obviously it's easier to go from small to big than big to small. With space limitations of smaller screens, you have to remove anything that isn't necessary because you want the website rendering to be efficient and the navigation easy to use. Now that you know how we got started, I want you to think back to a couple of minutes earlier when we asked you to relive your Game of Thrones trauma. Maybe you weren't able to succinctly express how the ending made you feel, at least not with words. But you could feel it, that distinctive emotional atmosphere. And maybe through that, you could envision a color. So, what is Vybe? Let me show you. First, you sign into your Spotify account. If it's your first time, and it will be, you'll be taken to the quiz page. Here, you'll listen to 5 songs and match each song to a color. Then, some very complicated math happens with the data you submitted in the quiz. Hewson will go through it. He has a maths degree. And then we return a Vybe-checked playlist. So here are the bones of Vybe. Now let's make it beautiful. I'll do you one better. How is Vybe?
Building upon the wireframe, once we've decided exactly what we needed, it was time to figure out how it should look. Vybe is all about your own interpretation, and we didn't want the design to take that away. We wanted to go with something that supports the overall feel of the website, something modern, yet a simple and classic design. To make sure the design didn't take away from your own interpretation, we wanted something dynamic. So we went with these dynamically moving blobs as a symbolic representation of the many vibes someone could have. But how did we make this? The stack we chose was MERN, which stands for MongoDB, Express, React, and Node. MongoDB is our document database. This is where we hold all of the data for our users, their quiz results, and their playlists. Express is the framework that helps manage requests, routes, and any of our middleware. React is the JavaScript front end or the client side. This is everything that the user will be seeing on their end when they're using Vybe. Node is the runtime environment for executing on the server side. This is where everything's happening in the background. All of that complicated maths, don't ask me about it, that's happening in the background, calculating exactly what your Vybe is. We chose to go to the MERN stack as we wanted as much of a learning experience as possible while at Holberton. As MERN uses JavaScript, the common language between all parts, this meant we were easily able to jump between all components to help where it was needed, as well as to fully understand how the entire Vybe project worked. A major component of Vybe was being able to choose a color specific to the user's current mood. We chose to go with a color wheel, specifically from Iro.js, as we didn't want to limit the options. With a color wheel, we essentially created limitless options for a user to choose from. Each of these colors are associated with a code known as HSL. In other words, hue, saturation, and lightness. Remember that part for later. Once we had decided on these components and how it should look like, it was time we started on development. Our design was never intended to be set in stone, and we set aside time to deploy initial iterations to QA testers. The 3 of us built Vybe. We knew exactly how it worked, but we wanted to ensure it was intuitive. The plan was then to have a redevelopment stage where we took Vybe to the next level. It was no longer just about what we thought Vybe needed anymore. It was time to make it so what the people wanted. Common feedback we got during QA testing was that they couldn't drag in the initial quiz calibration step. Our users wanted something more specific. They wanted the perfect shade for them. And so how did we change this? Here is what we started with, the initial design concept we thought we wanted. After we received the first round of QA testing, we quickly implemented a pre-start page. And the pre-start page is a quick way to give instructions and explain exactly what to do. But that wasn't enough. How can I drag to find the perfect shade of orange for me? And so our final iteration of Vybe was born. From here, users were able to drag around the color wheel to choose the specific color for them, and then save it. And I'll do you one better. Why is Vybe?
So you're probably wondering why we have a quiz. We had a lot of feedback from QA testing on why the quiz didn't lead to a playlist. We only have 5 songs. We're only ever going to have 5 colors. So what happens when someone picks a color that is one that's vastly different? This is where our algorithm kicks in to fill in the gaps. Have you ever thought about how Spotify recommends songs to you? Well, they have 13 different track features that help quantifying them. For instance, danceability is a measure of how suitable a song is to dance to. The closer to one it is, the more you want to dance. We have chosen 3: energy, danceability, and valence. These are all measured at a scale from 0 to 1. Remember when Chelsea said that we're using HSL inputs from a color wheel? Well, we have assigned each of these to a specific track feature. Energy to hue, valence to saturation, and danceability to lightness. So why do we have a quiz? The calibration quiz allows the user to match certain songs based on how they feel. These songs and colors are then saved to the database where they are stored. When the user wants to create a vibe, they will pick a color, then it runs through the algorithm, after which it returns a playlist. These songs in the playlist reflect the color choice of the user. In the backend, the algorithm is working hard. After selecting a color, it uses the user's initial calibration point and runs a distance calculation to find the distance between each of the save points and the user's selected point. The algorithm figures out which of these points are the closest to the chosen color. The point that is closest has more influence in the return of track features. These track features are then sent to Spotify that returns a playlist of songs based on the chosen vibe. So what did we learn?
Make sure to get your wireframing done early. It ensures everyone's aligned, it can make allocating work easier, and it puts you in a good position in the design phase. And most importantly, it alleviates some of the pressure when you're neck deep in coding.
You don't realize how important QA actually is until every single person had the same question and you didn't even think about it. Make sure you get feedback in early.
And then finally, communication is key. We created a safe environment where there were no stupid questions. Everyone was more than welcome to raise a question or a concern, and all team members were more than happy to help. Limitations. So we had to ensure that Vybe used minimal CPU power and memory so it could run on low to free development tiers. Additionally, Spotify has limited previews on websites and mobile, so you would be led to their app to listen to music. More importantly, Spotify has a development mode. During development, Spotify only allows a set amount of users to use Vybe at a time. To get approved, it would take a minimum of 6 weeks, which was the time we had to develop this. One day, we do plan on getting Vybe approved, but that's another story for another day. We have deployed and we want to experience it. So,
Before we get too into the live demo, we'd like to do a quick thank you to Holberton and to REA, especially to our mentors, Adrian, Daniel, Vu, and Carlos. Without you, Vybe wouldn't be what it is today.
we also want to say a thank you to all the people that have helped us along the way. Everyone from C19, C20, thank you for your guidance. Shout out to our fellow C21ers. Congrats on your journey, and we look forward to what you're going to bring with simplicity. If you have a Spotify account and want to experience a Vybe for yourself, look under your seat. There should be something stuck right underneath. If you sit in the right seats, bring the criminal you see to the jail warden Alicia, who is back there. In return for your brave apprehension, you will have Vybe.
For everyone else, while you don't get to experience Vybe on your own device, we have pitched it to our lovely volunteer, Jed. So while pitching this to Jed, we realized that he was actually our ideal user. So we've kept him in the dark and refused to let him see Vybe until today, so that he can experience Vybe in front of everyone for the first time, just like you guys.
So, initially, you're going to log in with Spotify. You'll be taken to the quiz page after this preload page. You would play the song. I'm not karaokeing. And then you would pick what color that song made you feel. Again, you would press play. Do it. So you'll be taken to our home screen, and if you need any questions, you can press the question mark in the top right. This will give you an explanation of what each button does. Initially, you'll have to create a vibe. What you've done with the calibration quiz is you've calibrated what you feel. Now you need to create your own vibe. So create your vibe and pick a color that you feel currently.
Holberton red.
And what will happen is a Spotify playlist with our logo will come up and you can listen to your vibe. This will appear on your Spotify playlist as well. So you can listen to the whole playlist. What you can do now is if you press the X in the top right and press it again, you can play your vibe, which will take you back to the playlist that you've created before. We have a red for Holberton red, obviously. If you press that, the Spotify will pop up again. What happens if your vibe changes? Press the X. You can redo your vibe, which takes you back to the calibration quiz, and you can redo the quiz again to perfectly match your vibe.
Beautiful.